can make just about anything with a 3D printer, even a gun. State lawmakers are now fighting over whether those so-called ghost guns need to be regulated.
3D printed weapons are unserialized, untraceable, and have been used in mass shootings like the Club Q shooting.
The Department of Homeland Security says Denver's promise to hold ICE officers accountable is all talk. A mother is fighting Colorado's universal pre-K program after her twins are assigned to separate schools.
It's 20 minutes when I mapped it, and it was not rush hour.
And getting to hear your good news is one of our favorite parts of the week. You could say it rocks.
I got a humongous rock.
This week's good news is also about rocks. That's tonight on Next. Every year, we see long debates at the state capitol over Democrat-led gun control bills. Today, Dems advanced a bill that would ban printing parts for 3D guns and would outlaw selling or giving away the electronic instructions to print those guns. Spencer Soicher shows us how Republicans are pushing back not with just a Second Amendment argument, but a First Amendment argument too.
Following a shooting at East High School in March of 2023, investigators searched the shooter's home. In a bedroom where 17-year-old Austin Lyle lived, police found a 3D printer and materials for it, and what they believed was a failed effort to make a 3D printed gun. But police determined the gun Lyle used when he shot two Deans was consistent with one made by a 3D printer.
While these weapons used to be kind of on the fringe of weapons in general, 3D printers and they're becoming more affordable, more accessible at our libraries, at our schools, means that the proliferation of these is only going to grow.
Democratic State Senator Katie Wallace is co-sponsoring a bill that would ban the sale and unlicensed manufacturing of 3D printed guns and their components, like an unfinished frame. It would also regulate the distribution of digital instructions for printing 3D firearms.
There's frame components that have already been regulated, but there are uncompleted frames that can still be used to ultimately create a weapon that this further expands on.
A 3D printed gun was also found at the scene of the mass shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs.
So it's less about seeking out cases that might have already happened and more about looking at that perspective.
Being able to manufacture guns or gunsmithing has been something that's been around, well, since the firearm was invented for hundreds of years. And that is just one step too far here.
Republican State Rep Matt Soper says this isn't just a Second Amendment issue. He says it's a First Amendment issue too.
The First Amendment allows us to have very controversial books even in our possession, so just having an instruction or the back software, I mean, that in and of itself, we believe is a violation of the First Amendment.
The bill initially banned possession of 3D printed guns and the instructions to make them, but it was amended Friday to focus on just manufacturing and selling. Republicans still aren't satisfied.
I believe the bill's not needed.
The nonpartisan staff that reviews bills says between 2022 and 2025, there is just one case where someone would be convicted of this offense. It's not clear if the shooter at East High School was counted after he died by suicide. Republicans say it's proof that the bill is legislating an issue that doesn't exist, while sponsors say it's being proactive as 3D printers become more accessible, Jenny.
Which is an interesting argument because you have Second Amendment, First Amendment, and now are we finding a solution that doesn't maybe have a problem yet, or are we getting ahead of a problem?
Yeah, a Republican on the floor today said we're creating criminals with this bill.
Interesting.
Obviously, they have not a lot of control at the Capitol, though. So.
Okay, Spencer, thank you. Another Democrat-backed gun bill advanced at the state capitol today. This one would also crack down on ghost guns by regulating the sale of gun barrels, which then can be paired with 3D printed parts to make a complete firearm. The proposal would require gun barrels to be purchased or transferred through a federally licensed firearms dealer. That would subject those sales to a background check and minimum age requirements. Gun advocates at the Capitol argue that regulating sales of gun parts would make it harder for legal gun owners to maintain their firearms. They also oppose a provision in the bill requiring firearm dealers to keep a 5-year register of their sales.
This incremental expansion of regulatory creep, risks turning routine maintenance and lawful ownership into a bureaucratic maze.
There are more places to legally purchase a firearm in the United States than there are Starbucks and McDonald's combined as a firearm barrel and is sold to the public. It does not ban the sale, but it does regulate that sale must be done in person with an FFL.
Under the bill, unlawful sales of gun barrels would be considered a misdemeanor. An unlawful purchase of a gun barrel would be a civil infraction. The bill still needs to pass a final vote in the Senate before heading to the House for debate. The Department of Homeland Security is not a fan of Denver Mayor Mike Johnston's latest executive order, which bars ICE agents from city property. Today, the department called that order, quote, legally illiterate, and made it clear they do not think that order is enforceable. The executive order prohibits ICE from using Denver city-owned property like buildings, parks, rights of way as a staging area or processing location or operation bases for civil immigration enforcement. There are exceptions if agents have a valid judicial warrant or a court order. This executive order from Denver also directs the Denver Police Department to protect peaceful protesters near ICE operations and investigate the use of excessive force by federal officers. A DHS spokesperson says local officials do not have the authority to stop ICE from carrying out immigration enforcement operations on public property. Denver's police chief and mayor both defended that order today.
Local police officers cannot and would not legally obstruct or interfere with lawful immigration enforcement actions. All law enforcement officers have a statutory obligation to intervene if they witness or illegal or excessive force being used by any law enforcement officer, to include federal agents.
If this is an activity not in cooperation with local law enforcement on city property, we feel clear we have the capacity to dictate or control who can or can't use that land.
That executive order is not the only restriction Denver's considering placing on federal immigration officers. On Monday, city councilors are expected to pass an ordinance prohibiting all law enforcement officers, including federal, from covering their faces with masks. Mayor Johnston says he'll sign that ordinance if it passes. Getting a bad review at work can send you into a spiral, but you got to take a deep breath before you react. Take it from former state Senator Sonia Jaquez-Lewis, who responded drastically to claims that she was a bad boss and is now a convicted felon on probation. Jaquez-Lewis is a Democrat who represented Longmont and will now serve 2 years probation for her conviction on 4 felony counts of forgery and attempting to influence a public servant. Fellow Dems at the Capitol were investigating claims that she mistreated her staff when she said she fabricated at least 1 letter of support from a former employee. Jaquez-Lewis abruptly resigned before that investigation was finished, but it did not spare her from a criminal investigation. During her sentencing today, she called the fabricated letters a mistake. She also claimed the case against her was politically motivated. And besides that probation, she has to serve 150 hours of community service and pay a $3,000 fine. Well, there's got to be more than one set of twins in the 30,000 applications for Colorado's universal preschool next fall. But one set of twins seems to be going through something unique. Our Marshall Zellinger met the family whose twins got matched for preschool to 2 different schools.
Go, go, go! Go, 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 go! Oh, we're coming, Addie!
It's been a bumpy ride.
Bumper cars!
For Adeline and Lucian and their mom, Emily.
This was the email that I got. Kind of announcing the matches to the preschool program.
Her twins got matched for preschools next year through Colorado's Universal Preschool. 2 different preschools, 5 miles and about 15 to 20 minutes apart, not counting rush hour.
Originally last week they had said, yep, we think they're in the same class, everything's fine. And then the email came and it said that one got into Southmore and the other one got into Stephen Knight.
Here are the basics of how UPK works. Parents rank their school choices in the state's UPK application. The state uses an algorithm to determine who goes where. The schools themselves get the final list from the state.
We don't see their matching process, they send us the matching process.
Priscilla Hopkins is the director of early education for Denver Public Schools.
It is a little bit unique.
She says the fix for Emily's kids has to be done by the state, not the schools.
We don't override. We call the Colorado Department of Early Childhood and we work through that together. Then the correct match comes to us, and then we can extend the offer.
The Colorado Department of Early Childhood told me in an email the matching system does not automatically link sibling or twin applications.
I don't think it makes sense for the state to be doing this in a silo and then kind of not having a ton of flexibility in being able to respond to situations like this.
Emily jokes that her twins must be the first to go down this path. one that is semi-resolved. UPK and DPS now say they can get both twins into one school, just not the one closer to Emily's house.
Unfortunately, we did not get into the preferred school because of class size restrictions. We decided to go with going with the farther school because at least they're at the same place.
UPK has a few intricacies. One of them is if one of Emily's kids were older and already in sophomore, for example, the second child would be given more priority to be placed there through the match. But because they applied at the same time, neither has standing, so they were viewed separately. Thank goodness she didn't have triplets.
Yeah, seriously. There's so many nuances to finding childcare. It's such a headache, or finding school placement, but surely this accommodation can't be the first time this has come up. I mean, the state, right?
DPS tells me there have been twins before, but
right.
What she would like to see is like some sort of drop-down choice in the application that gives the algorithm, hey, keep these two linked, whatever you decide.
Especially if they're already making that case for older sibling, younger siblings.
Yeah. We'll see
Just
next year if that drop down can happen, and we'll know who to thank for that.
At least this mom doesn't have to make 2 stops. I mean,
if we could get it closer, that'd be great. She still would like the closer school, but
who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? All right, Marshall, thank you. We do want to say a very quick thank you for all you have done this week to support single parents reaching their full potential. Here's Kyle with an update on this week's Word of Thanks.
Thanks for being with Next while I'm away. I want to tell you about an incredible nonprofit that helps lower-income single parents achieve financial stability that can last for a lifetime. This week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign benefits Project Self-Sufficiency of Northern Colorado. For 4 decades, they have helped families succeed. They link up with low-income single parents at a time when they're struggling to put together a career that can sustain a family. And they get them on a new educational trajectory. It typically starts with community college and then on to a 2-year or a 4-year degree. They exit their program and all of their counseling and tutoring. They leave that with an income $37,000 a year more on average than when they started. The kind of income that can help them build a life in Colorado. I invite you to join me and a bunch of other Coloradans in supporting Project Self-Sufficiency's work. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. Nearly 7,500 of you have signed up to make a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. You put in your info one time, pick your donation amount, and we automatically split it every month between every nonprofit that we help. It means that we have been able to start our recent campaigns with nearly $50,000 in giving. Thank you.
An effort to regulate pesticides dies at the state capitol after pushback from farmers.
She loves to look at beautiful things.
I do. I'm looking at you.
And we end the week we always do, the way we always do, with a little dose of positivity. Your good news is next. A Democrat-backed effort to regulate certain pesticides has failed at the state capitol this week, but there was bipartisan opposition to this proposal. Lawmakers were debating the health risks of continued pesticide use and the benefits pesticides can provide to farmers. 2 Democrats on an agriculture committee joined the Republicans to kill a bill regulating the use of seeds treated with pesticides called neonics. The bill would have required farmers to get approval from a Senate-approved auditor before using those seeds. Farmers argue using those treated seeds are an environmentally conscious alternative to spraying entire fields with pesticides. But environmental advocates say that the pesticide-treated plants still harm pollinators like butterflies and bees, and that there are still public health impacts when the pesticides leach into groundwater. The Dems who voted against the bill said they're not against regulating neonics, but the bill does need more work. All right, so now let's bring in Corey Reppenhagen. Do you have any strong opinions on any of these big issues at the Capitol, Corey? We've covered guns. We've covered, what else? We've covered neonic seeds. What do you got?
Exactly. Did Kyle put you up to that? Because I always ask him to give me a nice controversial toss into weather so that I could perhaps get myself into some trouble. I'm going to stay in my lane. which is the weather. And check this out. This is actually a pretty favorable pattern because it's going to help get some precipitation into the Front Range. Now, this is high pressure. We've seen that all winter. But as this breaks down this time over the weekend, we're going to introduce what I call a parade of storms over the first couple of weeks of March. This first one's coming in here on Tuesday. It looks like it's going to pull a lot of moisture out of the Gulf, and we got a good chance to get rain here in Denver because it doesn't look quite cold enough to have snow sticking to the ground. But the second one coming up here, this will be Friday, so Thursday and the Friday on the Front Range, looks like we could get a rain-snow mix and a better chance to get some snow accumulation. Doesn't look like a big storm, but that is some precip coming our way. We haven't had much really since December the 3rd was the last time we had more than a quarter inch of precipitation here in Denver. And so that pattern will continue beyond this 7-day forecast. But here we have Tuesday, looks like a good chance for some of us to get some rain, and then that rain-snow mix coming in on Friday. And I'll tell you, the weather pattern does stay similar to this in the week to follow. So that's a decent forecast.
Decent indeed. Corey, thank you. Colorado Parks and Wildlife says one of the state's wolves has died from a heart complication after the wolf was captured while they were trying to change the battery on his GPS collar. This happened last month in Routt County. A report from CPW says the male wolf's heart stopped working because of hypothermia, respiratory distress, or a drug reaction. State has not yet shared what drugs were used to capture that wolf. CPW said after they darted and captured the wolf, the body temperature was much warmer than average, and attempts to save his life were unsuccessful. The 3-year-old wolf was from the King Mountain Pack, one of 10 wolves brought over from Oregon in late 2023. And this is now the 14th wolf in the state to die of the 25 that were released in Colorado. When we come back, we ask our favorite Friday question: what is your good news? This week's answers are some real gems. Also, a reminder, you can always catch Next streaming every night at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is now a podcast every weeknight. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. At the end of a long week, hearing your good news is like finding a diamond in the rough. This week, we found it at the Mineral and Gem Show in Golden.
Good news today. It's a beautiful day. Rocks are amazing. Nature is fabulous. Families, everybody's great. So I got no complaints.
I got a humongous rock. The special part is this one has a pretty deep one, and then the special one about this is the crystals.
I make jewelry and I cut stone and I polish stone, so that's why I'm here.
And she loves to look at beautiful things.
I do. I'm looking at you. Oh, my good news is I'm here with friends looking at the marvels that the earth produces. It's just fascinating to me.
And my good news is I have a new grandbaby who's a month old. My heart, my treasure. And I know nothing about rocks, but I'm learning lots and lots of stuff.
My daughter has a cat named Mazzy, and she had a heart murmur, and the vet wasn't sure she'd be healthy enough to survive the surgery. And she was, and she had it yesterday, and will be able to live a good life.
It's been terrific, really.
Thank you so much for our good news to you.
That was Alex Castillo shooting that story. We're back with your feedback. Hi, lady. Thank you. Next. In your feedback tonight, Tom asks, is Kyle vacationing at the Salinger Estate? Looks like a pretty sweet deal. Tom, I don't know where Kyle is. It is not my day to watch him. Sorry. And Julie says, my good news this week was that I celebrated 31 years of being sober yesterday. Julie, from the bottom of my heart, and hopefully on behalf of the Next team, congratulations. Let's make it another 30 or more. Have a good night and a good weekend, guys.